It's been nearly 10 years since Bloodborne released, and in that time period, different From Software games have taken different inspirations from Bloodborne. It's undeniable that some games took more inspiration than others, and I believe Elden Ring is a great example of one of those games. A comment last week talked about maybe doing a video on Elden Ring and Dark Souls connections, but as I've already talked about that in the past, I really want to talk about the connections between Bloodborne and Elden Ring, and the significance they actually have for Elden Ring's story. I'm not going to ask you to subscribe if you're already subscribed, as that's literally impossible. But a small percentage of people that watch these videos are actually subscribed. If you do end up enjoying the video, please consider leaving a like and subscribe, as it greatly helps the channel. Without any further diddle-daddling, please sit back, relax, grab some succulent, juicy, tender and sensational prawns if you want, and enjoy as we delve into the connections between Elden Ring and Bloodborne. Starting off hot, steamy and heavy, I want to talk about the outer gods and the great ones from both Elden Ring and Bloodborne. Both of these games take a lot of inspiration from H.P. Lovecraft's cosmic horror. The only other game, in my opinion, that really takes that into effect is Demon's Souls, which is further reinforced when if you go into Bloodborne, in its beta, Father Guacamole actually says Umbasa, which is a word from Demon's Souls. Anyway, besides the point. In Elden Ring, the outer gods are these omnipotent, all-knowing, emotionless beings who rule over the cosmos. Something the great ones from Bloodborne also have in common. Something that you really need to pay attention to, in my opinion, is the fact in Elden Ring, we never actually see these outer gods. Yes, we know their work is at play, but we never actually see them. I believe if there is connections between both Elden Ring and Bloodborne, this is our brains not being aligned with enough insights. A major point of Bloodborne is not having enough insight. And that isn't just in Bloodborne, that is H.P. Lovecraft's work as a whole. The whole idea about the unknown. A great quote from him is that the oldest and strongest emotion of mankind is fear, and the oldest and strongest kind of fear is fear of the unknown. That is his whole ethos which he bases his works on. Likewise, in Bloodborne, all the great ones are associated in somewhat with the ocean. The oceans and lakes are a bulwark for guiding sleep, and an augur of the eldritch truth. That is what is told to us upon the great bulwark rune inside of Bloodborne. Likewise, a lot of the encounters with these outer godly beings happen upon water. The two best examples being the Elden Beast and Matia, who are intrinsically linked to the greater will, who would be the equivalent of a great one within Bloodborne. But trust me, there's more. If you look in Matia's boss room and the Elden Beast, but I want to talk about Matia more because in my opinion that's a lot more interesting. You'll notice you fight upon a massive ocean, and I say ocean and not lake because it goes on forever. This is very similar to the boss arena of Rom the Vacuous Spider, a left behind great one who tried to ascend with its brethren, a failed experiment from a student of Bergenworth. Now, we're never actually told of the origins of Matia. All we know is that she's a dazzling daughter of the greater will. Yet, we don't know in what extent she actually is. If you look at Rom, while it's not identical and there's a lot of differences, the same sort of art style is used in both Matia and Rom, which I think suggests some kind of connection. Going back onto Matia's origins, if she is in some way related to how Rom came about, that being a Bergenworth student transformed, then perhaps there's a lot more to Matia's story that we never really considered. What if she is in fact one being who tried to ascend to the level of a great one, and yet all the same failed? That would also explain Matia's placement inside the Lands Between and the Lands of Shadow, for it very much seems like she has been abandoned. She sits in a veiled off region of the Lands of Shadow, with nor a person, nor a presence, other than the perhaps dead finger corpses that are her children. She is alone, and it seems very much that she's been abandoned by her father, her pop-up. The reason I more believe that she is some sort of humanoid being, well, not human, as there's tons of races inside of Elden Ring, but that sort of human-esque species, is more to do with the fact she's a schemer. Now, in both Elden Ring and in Bloodborne, these omnipotent great ones, outer gods, they all really don't give two shits about the world they control, the world they watch over. One of the big things about cosmic horror is their thought process is beyond our comprehension. Our emotions are way below theirs, and they understand us on a different level, but an emotionless point of view, for they have comprehended everything. And yet Mattia schemes through the fingers, she puts plots in action, and she brings in new deities. This seems like the action of a very scheming schemer. It doesn't seem like some omnipotent, I don't give a shit, fuck off kind of person. Another connection being you can basically see what is archtrees inside of both Elden Ring and inside of Bloodborne. In the Hunter's Dream, if you look out upon the ever-expanding universe that is the Hunter's Dream, you'll actually notice these trees spiking up. Now these also have a lot of similarities to every other From Software game in recent memory. The only difference being the ones inside of Elden Ring and the ones inside of Bloodborne seem a lot more similar than the arch trees which are located inside of Dark Souls and some other From Software games. Now in other From Software games they're kind of hinted at being this way to travel between worlds. These are all different worlds and the different worlds of the players. That's what supposedly is the arch trees. And yet inside of Bloodborne and Elden Ring we're never given any insights. Perhaps it's the same, or perhaps there's something more to this. Sadly, it's one of those things where we're really not going to find an answer, which is very annoying, trust me, but it just is how it is. Another connection lies in runes. There's a lot of power in runes inside of Bloodborne, most prominently the Carol runes, which have powers from the Great Ones themselves. Does this sound not a little similar to the runes inside of Elden Ring? Appearance-wise, they might not look very similar, but these runes are powers bestowed upon us by the shards of the Elden Ring, a gift given to us by the outer gods. To me, it makes a lot of sense that this would be the same kind of gift. The fact that it was brought about by a mortal, though, sort of does give me some pause. Perhaps there is more at play to do with the Elden Ring and runes in Elden Ring than we might actually know. Now that we've talked about quite a few of the connections, I want to talk about where Bloodborne and Elden Ring fit into each other's timeline. I truly believe that Bloodborne is set after the Age of Stars ending. Now inside of Bloodborne, there's not much of really outer godly Great One presence. Of course they're there, and trust me, they're there. I mean, take a look at the amygdalas. But they're not as present in the actual day-to-day lives as they are inside of Elden Ring. In Ranni's ending, in the actual Japanese version instead of the skewiffed English one, it says that Ranni wants to take her order into the stars, away from the lands between. I think this is the only time that Bloodborne can progress from inside and regarding Elden Ring's timeline. Now, I've never been a big fan of Ranni. I think the methods she goes about doing what she needs to do are horrible. She throws all her friends under the bus. She has her brother killed when reality is she needs a demigod to slay her own flesh. But there's literally Godfrey, which is a demigod inside of one of the Evergales. She didn't need to kill Godwyn. She wanted to. That wasn't some mercy killing or some act that needed to be done. It was for selfish reasons. Yet her ending, if it's to be believed without considering Bloodborne, seems to be a step in the right direction. Maybe it'll be good for the lands between to not be influenced by gods or godly beings or outer gods. And yet, if, following the Age of Stars ending, Bloodborne happens, then that is really put into question. Without Ranni, without any of that unalloyed gold shit, these Great Ones are able to ravage the land of Yharnam and Bloodborne. They are able to manipulate it and control it to their will. I think this is further proof that although some people will call the secret ending, the Age of Stars, the good ending, I believe it is the bad ending. And I don't think, other than the Dung Eater and the Frenzy Flame ending, there's actually a more evil one. Now, I love the Frenzy Flame ending, but it's undeniable that it's quite fucking evil. Something I find really intriguing is a certain line that we hear inside of Bloodborne. All Great Ones yearn children, but they're fated to lose them, so they search for a surrogate. A great example of this is Murgo, who is a child of Odin, the formless guy. By the way, formless Odin, Formless mother, a connection. The Queen of Yharnam is impregnated by Odin, the result of this being Murgo. Now, if we're going off the assumption that there is inspiration, or at the very most, a connection between Bloodborne and Elden Ring's world, there needs to be some sort of level of this inside of Elden Ring. And I think we see that inside of godly beings. Now, we sort of know from Marika, at least in the case of the Greater Will, that her power is passed on through her children, the Empyreans. Special children chosen by the Two Fingers, who is being controlled by Mattia, who perhaps still has some sort of communication with the Greater Will, even if it's some last wish. I think the Empyreans are a lot more darker than you might think. Now, we don't know how Marika came about, but she's special. She ascended to godhood. Perhaps she herself is a surrogate child of a great one, born between a mortal and a god, an outer god. Now, if we're going off Bloodborne and the fact that they yearn for a surrogate, they yearn for a child, they've got Marika, and yet the ones that succeed her, what are they to be done with? What are they to become? Well, maybe it has something to do with further surrogates. Now, that would explain why Ranni was so adamant about not furthering herself as an Empyrean. I don't know, with the influence of Bloodborne and the fact that unwanted childbirth is such a prevalent theme in it, I don't think it'd be too far-fetched for that also to be a secret theme inside of Elden Ring. I don't know. As always, I am so curious to see what you all have to say about all of this. Another thing I had to talk about was the Eternal Cities. If you look, they are so similar to Yharnam. Their architecture, the little flayed, burnt up, excruciating pain guys sticking their hands out, they're identical to Yharnam's. They even look like the messages from the Hunter's Dream. There is so many connections here. Another one being pale blood. Pale blood in Bloodborne is the blood of the gods. The Nox are descended from Numen. Now, whether they were created or not is up for discussion. But regardless of that, a long time ago, the Nox bled silver. When you kill a being of artificial life, they'll squirt pale blood. They'll squirt silver blood. Inside of Bloodborne, the doll is made of silver blood, of pale blood. She's brought into being. She is artificial life. Just like how the creations of the Nox are created as well. Sadly everyone, that has been the end of the video. If you did enjoy, please consider leaving a like and subscribe as it greatly helps the channel. If you didn't enjoy the video, drop a dislike. Honestly, I'm really curious to see your honest opinions on the video. Anyway, I'm not going to ramble anymore as that's what I seem to do at the end. So please, don't you dare go hollow friends, and may you find your worth in the waking world. Goodbye everyone.